Hello class. This week we're going to cover Chapter 8 of Lenkeit, Kinship and Descent. Are these the ties that bind? We're going to look at functions of kinship, ideal versus real patterns of kinship, descent groups, parallel and cross cousins revisited from last week, and terminological systems. Let's get started. Ideal versus real patterns of kinship. When anthropologists describe a culture's kinship system, they are presenting the culture's ideal custom or most common pattern. This is what they would say they do if they were asked. Of course, life plays out differently on the ground. In the ethnographic literature, anthropologists most often discuss and analyze ideal customs and behaviors. Real behaviors and their variations are also recorded in some, but not all, ethnographic accounts. Variations and exceptions to the ideal within a society nearly always happen. The knowledge of proper accepted customs is usually shared by most members of a culture, even if all do not practice the custom or behave in the ideal manner. Now, name 3 specific ways your nuclear family provides you with security. I would say shelter, food, companionship, a measure of security. These are things that a nuclear family provides. And in kinship, it is a family and extended family that provides all the services that we become used to in institutions. Now, name 3 ways social institutions provide you with security. Social security, unemployment, education, the law, and law enforcement. These are all ways that institutions now provide these services that used to be provided by family. Medical care is one of those things as well. Functions of kinship: to organize people into groups, into family groups, into residence groups, and into descent groups. What for? For inheritance and responsibility. Who inherits from the family, and who has responsibility to whom in that family. It also directs people's behavior. What is your role in society? What place do you hold? And then we can look at status. There are 2 types of status: ascribed, given at birth, and achieved, earned through individual skills, actions, and accomplishments. Provides a function of kinship. It provides security to members of a group, support in daily tasks, and in major life transitions. Also economic, food, shelter, a role in society. Descent groups, affiliations between children and parents. Functions: it organizes domestic life. It also gives a place for children to be oriented or enculturated to that society, to those cultural dynamics and traditions. It allows the transfer of property. Kinship and descent carries out religious ritual and settles disputes. Descent groups is defined as a group of people who share identity that is directly traced or stipulated to come from a common ancestor. There are several types of descent groups, which include unilineal descent groups, 1 line, non-unilineal descent groups, more than 1 line, other descent groups, and associations based on descent. Here we have a picture of organizational hierarchy of lineages, clans, phratries, and moieties. Lineages are blood lineages. In an area, lineages form through family groups. When populations grow large, it has been tradition for lineages to come together as clans in cooperation. Marriage alliances, trade alliances create these cohesiveness between the clans. When clans get big, they divide up into phratries. And again, ways to keep people together, related, in a kinship together. And when phratries get big, they divide into two. Moiety. Moiety is the French word for half. This has been the tradition until populations get to a certain size. When the hierarchical dominance appears, we add to this kinship references that divide people out. The caste system, the class system, racial identities for stratification, gender stratified associations. At that point, we begin to splinter our human society. This is because of population density stress. This comes from interacting with more and more anonymous strangers. The trick now is to bring back a kinship, a global kinship, our relatedness as the human race, as human families, all doing the same thing in very diverse ways. We use language to organize, to communicate, to connect and cooperate in building our world. The technology, the things we need. And we organize by kinship, family, and marriage to create a cohesiveness. In that society, we create art and mythology, expressing our humanity and our identity. It's time that we begin to understand we are one human species, one human family, and begin to redesign kinship terms that unite us in cooperation. Lineage. A group of kin whose members trace descent from a known common ancestor provides ascribed status, group membership, role in that group, the behaviors that you should be performing in that role, expectations of that, as well as responsibilities to each other. Lineages hold property in common. All members benefit from this property, land or animals. All contribute to property maintenance in some manner. They all have their role in that society, divided by sex and by age, by masculine and feminine, and by age. All view those in their lineage as their closest, most important relatives. The lineage assigns authority, usually to the older members. They hold the decision-making power. The lineage continues over time, even if members change. Some have made comparisons to a modern corporation, where you have a group under this corporate logo. The corporate logo remains, even though the members of that corporation may change. Unilineal descent groups. Consanguinal ties passed down. Patrilineal descent. Descent is passed through the male line. All members, men and women, acquire their lineage from their father, but only males pass it on. Function of patrilineal descent: keep property for the males to own and manage. Source of tension in patrilineal descent groups, requirement for younger men to defer to older men. Requirement for women to defer to men as well as to the women of a household they marry into. Unilineal descent groups, consanguineal ties being passed down. Matrilineal descent is traced through females. Only women can pass the lineage of membership on. Function of matrilineal descent, women have inheritance rights over property. Source of tension in matrilineal descent groups. Husband's authority lies not in his own household, but that of his sister. Unsatisfactory marriages can be ended easily, resulting in higher divorce rates than in patrilineal societies. In fact, the Hopi, a woman can divorce her husband by simply putting his belongings on the front porch. Non-unilineal descent groups, bilateral descent, descent that is traced equally through both mother and father, as well as kindred, a term associated with bilateral descent in which relatives calculate their degree of relationship to ego. In a kindred, only siblings share the exact same relatives. So imagine you have a problem. If we just depended on kinship, we would use family members. But in this case, if we have a broken fence, we might call a cabinet maker. If we have plumbing problems, we might call a plumber. If your house needs painting, we call a painting firm. Our family connection has gotten so large that we have now farmed out our responsibilities to institutions. But at the same time, we seem to remove the responsibility of those institutions to the people. That people should do it on their own. And people do when they can. But these days, you can only have an institution help if you can afford it. A kindred. The kindred of siblings A and B are shown with the broken line. The kindred siblings C and D are shown with a solid line. If you follow the kindred back another generation, you'll see that A and B would have a different kindred from that of their mother and father. A kindred is never the same for any two persons except for siblings. Double descent, a system in which two separate lines of descent are recognized at the same time. Some property is passed down through females, other property through males. Example is transhumance pastoralism. If you will remember, the men own the animals, the females own the land for farming, and so when they pass inheritance down, the men pass down the animals to the boys, and the females pass down the land to the females. Ambilineal descent, a system in which everyone belongs to a unilineal descent group that is acquired through either the mother or the father. Some members trace their lineage through female, while others through males. Discussions are held to determine which to follow at what time.